Okay, friends, it is that time again. It's the Happy Half Hour Training Camp Daily Edition.
Where's your dance?
And you do. I don't know if we should dance today because there's so much going on.
Yeah,
It is after all training camp. Players reported today, and we've got news. We got a lot to cover in this episode of the Happy Half Hour Daily Training Camp Edition. Including some roster news. Dan Morgan talked today about some of the expectations for the team and what they are and are not. And we had a couple of interesting conversations with Rob Hunt and Nick Scorton. And we've got a special treat later for you on Panthers.com. We've got some exclusive photographs of both Nick Scorton's cat and dog. You can't wait to see this. Trust me when I tell you that.
What a tease.
I know, right? There's a lot of stuff happening here, so let's just get right to it. The big news this afternoon that's going to complicate the next couple of days is the release of Josey Jewell. Josie, starting linebacker last year, starting middle linebacker, came to the Panthers after some background with DeJero Avero in Denver and really stabilized things in the middle. Started 12 games, was second on the team in tackles. He did not pass his physical today because he's still experiencing concussion symptoms. He is kind of stepping away right now to focus on his recovery, and I think there is some degree of hope. The door is open for him to return, provided that recovery goes well. Obviously, the first thing you're concerned about in a situation like this is Josie. He's one of the true pros in that room. He brought a lot of stability, a lot of integrity to that position last year when a lot of things were unsettled on defense, and he was a good, solid pro and helped a lot of people and helped them get through. I think the fact that even though he only played 12 games, missed 5, he was still second on the team in tackles.
Yeah.
He only trailed Xavier Woods, who played every single snap of the season, so that tells you about the impact he had. He was a guy who was around the ball.
Won that Giants game in a way.
And, was one of those guys who had a nose for the ball, 3.5 sacks, 7 tackles for loss. He filled up a stat sheet in a season that was a tough situation for linebackers, period. And the fact that he was able to do all that in just 12 games speaks to the level of player he is. And again, let me be clear. Our first thoughts are with Josie. Get well soon. That guy was a total pro. Hope for the best for him and his family. That being said, for the Carolina Panthers, this is kind of a tricky one because they weren't necessarily deep at that position to begin with opening camp. And now you walk into the season, first day of practice tomorrow, and oh, by the way, Trevin Wallace and Christian Roseboom, next man up.
Right. I mean, anytime, first of all, like you said, just to reiterate, every thought and prayer with Josie right now, I don't think it's detrimental, but he's focusing on his health, as he should. But anytime you lose your Mike linebacker and someone who had, like you said, brought not only stabilization but a voice to that defense and, was trusted with the green dot a lot of times, he was the middle guy there. It's going to cause a ripple effect and not a small one. So, what does that mean? How do the Panthers want to shift this? Do they kind of move Trevin Wallace into that primary Mike or is that Christian Roseboom? There's a lot of questions. That's what training camp is for. So, in a very, very small silver lining, if you choose to see it, is that they know this at the beginning of camp and have the next 3 weeks to kind of work through some of these questions and these possibilities, these different personnel groupings to see what works best. Who steps up? That's the next question. Who steps up? Next man up.
Yeah.
And who takes that role and makes sure that it stays the same and provides a sense of stability there.
And honestly, you made that point. I mean, the timing is fortunate from the standpoint of Trevin Wallace and Roseboom get an opportunity to take all those reps now. And I think that's part of, Josie is a class guy who wanted to make sure everybody he's leaving behind is in the best opportunity to continue. And again, I hope he gets well, and I hope we see him again because Josie's a good cat in addition to being a really good football player. So, again, I can't say this enough. We tend to depersonalize football players because they wear helmets and we can't always see their faces. But there's one behind this one. So hope he's well. And I just think it's going to continue kind of the trend of what Dan Morgan was talking about today. I mean, he spent a lot of time and energy and effort and money and draft picks shoring up that defense this offseason. And there are still some spots where it's not necessarily deep. He knows that. He's aware of what they're looking at cornerback, at safety, at inside linebacker, even before this news. But he talked throughout today's press conference about the need to develop young players, and they've got some young guys. I mean, even down to an undrafted rookie like Bam Martin-Scott from South Carolina is a linebacker they liked in that pre-draft process, and every one of those guys on that depth chart, whether it's Claudin Cherilus, Jacoby Windman, John Radigan's primarily a special teams player, but he jumped in last year and played some snaps in the middle. So he was a guy who hadn't played a lot of defense, and all of a sudden he had a green dot on his helmet coming down the stretch of last season. So there are going to be a lot of opportunities and a lot of reps for a lot of young players. Mm-hmm. That was something we were talking about going into today, about the cornerback room, about the safety room. Now I add inside linebacker room to the pile.
Yeah, and they're not bereft of options, but it is going to be a little tighter there than it would be maybe wide receiver or some of these other spots. But like Dan Morgan said, this is they want to create competition, and this is a good place to do it now. You've got the roster pulled up in front of you there too, right?
Yeah, always.
And so you do. Nobody keeps a roster like Darin Gant.
It is a labor of love, and I think it's helpful. I mean, you look at it this time of year, and again, Jacoby Windman is a guy who came in the middle of the last season when things were a little bit unsettled, from the Pittsburgh practice squad. He's a guy who had background with Pete Hansen, the inside linebackers coach from UNLV. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. I don't know. It's too soon because this all happened after Dan Morgan talked today, middle of the afternoon. And so we don't know what next steps are. They've got a roster spot. There's a couple different ways they could go to fill that. There are needs in a couple different places. Dan talked today about, tight end. Tommy Trimble is going to miss some time here in the next couple days. I mean, he said Tommy's doing well. We'll see how it goes. He didn't want to put a timetable on him, but Tommy's going to miss some time. So do they fill that spot with a tight end, with another linebacker? They got a number of ways to go, but it's also July 22nd.
I thought John Radigan had started a game at the end of last season, but apparently he did not.
Yeah,
but he played a decent number of
coming down the stretch. I mean, they were playing Claudin Cherilus a lot. They brought one of our old friends. Gosh, why am I drawing a blank on his name? Matt's going to edit this for me, and I appreciate Matt editing that for me because I want to make this more complicated this afternoon. Chandler Wooten. Chandler Wooten came in and started some games. Realistically, that was a position that was unfinished to begin with, and they were going to continue to look at options. So it just gives them one more thing to work on. Yeah.
Again, now's the time to do it, and you're still at a good point in the wire to kind of maybe go find somebody if you have to there too. There are options on the market. It's just a matter of finding one that's a right fit, because a lot of this did kind of depend on Josie's health. Mm-hmm. Or that unit depended a lot on Josie's health. But again, Christian Roseboom is not without experience. He's done it before, and he's done it in this defense.
Yeah.
And, Trevin Wallace still kind of wet behind the ears in some ways, but was picked up where he was for a reason and was trusted as much as he was last year for a reason.
Yeah.
So, what sort of jump does he take this year? It could be an exciting opportunity for either one of those guys.
Yeah, Roseboom's one of those guys. He is a physical downhill guy. He's more of that rundown linebacker, that traditional inside linebacker that you think of. He played for a decent Rams defense last year and put up a bunch of numbers. Mm-hmm. So he has been in that situation where he started some games again. Him and Wallace are kind of the two likely candidates right now. That one's going to continue to evolve. But I don't want to spend the whole time talking about that. I mean, because, again, there was so much going on today.
135 tackles last year.
Yeah. And when Dan talked to us earlier today, I think it kind of brought into relief for me how much this roster has changed this offseason. Mm-hmm. I mean, when those moves are flying fast in March, when the draft happens, you're kind of aware that those things are happening. But when you take a step back with a couple of months and realize that on day one of free agency, Dan Morgan added 5 contributors on defense. Mm-hmm. A couple of defensive linemen in Bobby Brown, Tershawn Wharton, Pat Jones, at outside linebacker, Roseboom in the middle. Trayvon Merrick at safety is going to be a big part of the run defense as much as the pass defense this year. So the work they did there was significant. You come back and you draft Scorton and Princely in rounds 2 and 3, and all of a sudden you realize we're going to walk out there on the field tomorrow, and it's going to look completely different. So that's going to be one of the fascinating things to watch in these first couple of days of camp.
We talked a lot about this earlier during the offseason as well. There were a lot of moves made last offseason that were, for lack of a better term, a stopgap. And this offseason, at least on defense, there were a lot of moves made that were like, okay, these are now we've kind of set the foundational pieces with guys like Derek Brown and J.C. Horn. These are now our pieces to build up this defense. And you see long term what they want this defense to look like. And so I think when you start to see that come together during training camp, it can be really exciting just to kind of see the vision that Dan Morgan had a year ago, and now it is starting to really come to fruition, and he's putting together a team on the field that this is what he wants it to look like.
Yeah, no doubt. And speaking of excitement, Mr. Excitement, Rob Hunt, talked to
He
reporters
is nothing
today.
but exciting.
This man was on one. He walked in with no shoes on his feet. He said he was clean and the socks were new, so he felt okay about that.
I don't know if that's a justifiable excuse.
I am a person who wants to avoid wearing shoes as often as possible.
I've noticed.
I've got them on today out of obligation. I don't know that will always be the case during this podcast, during training camp, because it's really hot outside. Never mind
sweaty feet.
Never mind the fact that Kassidy's wearing a sweatshirt, because it's approximately 52 degrees in the studio right now.
And it's a Christmas sweatshirt at that. I just went with what I could find.
Yeah, Podcast Matt's always bundled up like some kind of Sherpa over there in the corner. And he is our Sherpa. He helps guide us through these, rough hills of the podcasting world. But anyway, Rob walked in, and he was in a mood. He was talking about...
A good mood.
A very good mood. I mean, he was talking about how much excitement he sensed. And, I mean, you wrote about this already this afternoon at Panthers.com, and I encourage you to check out the video. This is my plug, by the way. We've got tons of stuff for you. Panthers.com. Panthers channel on YouTube.com. Bookmark them. Visit them often. We do it for the people. But Rob was in a mood, and he talked about how much excitement he senses out in the community.
Yeah, he talked about being out in Charlotte and feeling a city that is hopeful and hungry. And he was like,
Wait, how do you spell that, hungry, by the way?
Anyways. And a team, and like a city that he knows is like, he said, this is a city that's here to support winners. We've just got to give it to them. And he was like, I know that there hasn't necessarily been that the past few years. And, as we learned from Ted Lasso, as being big Ted Lasso fans, it's the hope that kills you.
Yeah.
But, like, there's more sustainability to that hope this offseason. And Rob talked about coming down the second half of last season, and he's like, even winning only 5 games, he said you could tell that based on how we were doing it and what we were doing, the city was so ready to, like, support us and get behind us. And he's like, so now we just got to deliver for them.
Yeah.
And he made a comment, too. And he was like, obviously, we got to get out on the field. We got to play other teams. And he's like, but I like how we're built. Mm-hmm. We're built physical. We're built tough. We're built nasty. And that's what Dan Morgan has wanted from the day he sat behind that table the first day he, as a GM, when he talked to everyone.
Yeah, and I've always said, if you want to know what somebody's all about, you can listen to their words, but watch what they do. Mm-hmm. And what has Dan Morgan done since he's been GM? He spent a pile of money on Rob Hunt and Damian Lewis in free agency last year. Mm-hmm. He goes out on day one of free agency and signs Tershon Wharton and Bobby Brown this year. Mm-hmm. I think he's serious about making the lines better here, gang. I don't know.
Yeah, he's certainly proven it with his checkbook. Isn't that what they say? If you want to know where a man's heart is, look at where his money is.
Yeah,
that's where Dan Morgan's money is.
But they've invested it. I mean, and that's the thing Dan Morgan knows. I keep going back in the back of my mind to the setup around here when Dan Morgan was playing. He was a first-round pick in 2001 and was part of a defense that was 31st in the league his rookie year. Not really necessarily his fault. That was not a great team. Year 2 of Dan Morgan's career, they were second in the league, primarily because Dan Morgan's out there playing behind cats like Mike Rucker and Julius Peppers on either end, Brinson Buckner and Chris Jenkins inside. And all of a sudden, it's like it gets a lot easier to be Dan Morgan, and he's flying around making plays all over the field. So those lessons are built into him. I mean, when I hear Dan Morgan talking today and he uses words like smart and tough, I'm like, those are the words John Fox said to you in 2002 when he walked in the door. That was what John said he wanted his Panthers teams to be, and they proved to be in going to a Super Bowl in year 2 of that run and an NFC championship game a couple years later. So those kind of experiences are part of your DNA at a certain point, and that's what Dan wants to turn this team into.
Something else Dan said today, and it's going to harp on something that we have said over and over and over, so people might even be tired of it, but I don't care. Because Dan brought it up again today, because he was like, the best-led teams are always player-led teams. He's like, I've seen that everywhere I've been. And that was a huge focus for them as well. And you see it in guys like Robert Hunt, guys like Nick Scorton, who also came up, even as a rookie. Like, Nick Scorton will be the first person to tell you he's not the leader of this rookie class, which is one of the reasons I think he is. Like, he's not trying to be, he just is. And you see those guys kind of taking ownership of what they're doing and the people around them. And that's exactly what Dave Canales and Dan Morgan have said they've wanted. And again, just another aspect of this team where you see it kind of finally coming to fruition and manifesting everything they wanted.
Player-led team, huh?
Right.
Somebody should write a story about that. Maybe like this one on Panthers.com. There are a lot of
Dan Morgan probably read that yesterday and then came to the lectern today and was like, you know what Darin said was right.
That's right. Darin was right. I just carved that on my stone. That's all I really need. No, I mean, I think when you look around, I mean, in addition to the Derek Browns, the Rob Hunts, I mean, the Chuba Hubbards, the J.C. Horns, those are the guys you see kind of pulling this thing along right now, and those are the people they've invested in because they kind of represent. All those guys have things in common besides being big and physical and strong and fast and tough, but they are the example that they want people to follow. I mean, I have said it before, and I will say it again. The week after a Philadelphia game last year when XL drops a pass, he's out on the jugs with Chuba the very next practice. And XL has become one of those jugs machine guys. He's, in there practically every day getting that extra work. And that's the strength of a player-driven organization. I mean, it would be easy for a coach to say, hey, why don't you get over there? But when you see Chuba Hubbard do it and then you start doing it, that's the lesson they want taught.
Yeah. I forgot it. I had an entire response to that, and it just completely left my head.
It completely left your head. You know why? You're still thinking about Nick Scorton's pets. You're still thinking about JR and Lily.
JR is a Maine Coon cat. Darin, do you know how big those cats get? It could kill a small child.
What? That's some more Alabama stuff right now. How would the Maine Coon cat stand up against the Alabama alligators we discussed yesterday?
Oh, not at all. That would just be an amuse-bouche for the alligator.
See, you can say amuse-bouche,
but
hungry gives you... A source close to me may have said to me in the last couple of days, did you hire Kassidy just because her accent's even more southern than your own?
Who asked you that?
That source close to me may actually be related to me. We'll get into all that later, but I've got to protect the confidentiality at some point.
To Darin's point real quick, I did Google the alligator thing after the show, and I was right.
Yeah.
Was I not?
But, Nick Scorton, in addition to being a high-level pass rusher, based on what we saw of him in college, in both the Big Ten and the SEC, as he was careful to point out today, he can get after it, but he's a big softy. You can tell, and when I tell you, this is the tease, I can't wait for you to see these animal pictures. They are that adorable. And to see Nick curled up with his cat, it's like this man's, the cat, the 14-week-old cat has Nick Scorton wrapped around its little paw right now.
Imagine him as like a dad one day, too. No, that cat, though, is going to get up to like 35 pounds.
I love that.
Which is crazy. But he has a little dog to make up for it. So
what kind of dog is that?
Long-haired dachshund.
A long-haired dachshund named
Lily.
Lily. Hey, by the way, speaking of dachshunds, did you guys hear about the cowboy who adopted a rescue dachshund?
Matt, don't let him tell this joke.
He wanted to get a long little doggy. Yeah!
Anyways,
that joke is funny. Empirically speaking, I will hear no slander.
First day of camp tomorrow.
That's right. First day of camp tomorrow. We are going to be out on a practice field in a little bit. It feels like moments from now we'll be out there. And
It is moments at this point.
That's right. Because this has been a long day already. We've got a lot coming your way. Again, check out Panthers.com. Check out the YouTube channel for all the latest video. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming your way, and we'll be coming your way tomorrow right here on the Happy Half Hour Training Camp Edition. By the way, let's take it out. Rest in peace, Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness. I mean, we're in a dark room. This makes me feel kind of like Ozzy.
Are you going to sing us a tune?
Our regards. No, I'm not singing any copyright music. We're just going to leave this one at that. See y'all tomorrow, gang.